Why I Write by Jonathan Bowden for Countercurrents, August 18th, 2010, reprinted in Pulp, Fascism. This is always difficult to assess, but from this distance, 3 different spear points become discernible through the mist. The first is an obvious desire for self-expression, yet, as always, the nihilism of Samuel Beckett needs to be avoided, where, during one part of the trilogy, such as Malloy, he declares nothing to express, no need to express, a blinding desire to stain the silence. I think that the aporia whereby postmodernism eats itself needs to be avoided. Nonetheless, I believe that fantasy, or the fantasia of the semi-conscious mind, is the most important vector, aesthetically speaking. All of my fictional work comes out of the anima, or that part of consciousness just beneath rationality. All of my texts, like Kratos, or the fanatical pursuit of purity, for example, are dreams. But dreaming to what end? Well, the essential starting point is a desire to overcome dualism in the ethical sense. This imputes the following: that all of my characters in a short story like Origami Bluebeard are neither good or evil. They are, more fundamentally, a mixture of both, and they feed upon each other like raptors within a world of the uncouth. Nor is this a purely misanthropic vision either, in that heroic vigor is just the flip side of negativism. Character, at least as posited in these stories, is biological, prior ordained, morphic, and predestined. It is primarily Augustean in theological terms, in other words. But contrary to most Judeo-Christian estimations of culture, this is not observed in a woe-begotten or morbid state. Instead of these dark frenedies, the heathen logic of Robert E. Howard is more applicable. The current estimation is very much that civilization and barbarism are mutually exclusive, but I believe that you cannot have the one without the other. In these stories, plays, novellas, and novels, even the non-fiction dialogue Apocalypse TV, I have attempted to overcome dualism within a non-humanist motif. This means that the characters are dolls or puppets in terms of Artaud's The Theatre of Cruelty at one level, but they are also much more alive at another. In most contemporary liberal novels, Iris Murdoch's The Philosopher's Pupil, by illustration, only the villainous, macabre, or negative specimens have life, whereas in my efforts, such as a tragic story like Napalm Blonde, all of the characters bite and rage, love is voltaic, unpronounced, and beyond the remit of good and evil. Why is this done? Merely to provide a template whereby the battle occurs betwixt the superhuman and the subhuman per se, and it exists across or between individuals. My view is that immersion in dream-like or solipsistic material that has a different rhythm or vibration will turn Caucasian wimps into cultured Neanderthals. For what is required is an attitude to life which goes forwards towards the great noontide, open-armed and in the manner of the sun worship at the end of Hermann Hesse's The Glass Bead Game. I am not preaching anti-intellectuality, but extolling the licentiousness and chthonic violence of reintegration. The affliction which Indo-Europeans suffer from is entirely mental and subjective. They are chronically afraid of their own shadow in Jungian terms. If the civilization which their ancestors created has any future at all, then they must overcome their resistance to barbarism. They must overleap it on the altar of high culture. They must dispel the cloud and lay out a future where Arthur Booth's credo doesn't have to be true, or not. Truthfully, in this age, those with intellect have no courage, and those with some modicum of physical courage have no intellect. If things are to alter during the next 50 years, then we must re-embrace Byron's ideal, the cultured thug. Jonathan Bowden. That article was originally published in Pulp, Fascism, Right-Wing Themes in Comics, Graphic Novels, and Popular Literature by Jonathan Bowden under the Self-Criticism Appendix. So, this recording is going to be part of a project I would like to call the Jonathan Bowden Learning College. This will be a series of recordings in the style of Alex Linder's VNN Forum Learning College. You may have heard Alex Linder's renditions of The Camp of the Saints, or perhaps even the works of Dr. William Luther Pierce. Alex Linder sadly passed away in July in 2025, and the future of his work and places like the VNN Forum remains uncertain. So my objective with these recordings is to tribute Alex Linder. I personally quite enjoyed his recordings, especially the one of The Camp of the Saints, and also to put a voice to the relatively obscure written work of Jonathan Bowden, as many people engage with the speeches and the interviews, but very few engage with the unvoiced work of Jonathan Bowden. Now, there are a few AI recordings, Microsoft Sam-esque recordings of Jonathan Bowden's written work. I'm not a huge fan of those, especially the interview, where it's just Microsoft Sam talking to himself. No offense to the people who put the work in to create something like that and upload it to YouTube, but I find, for my purposes and other people's listening experiences, the AI voices just don't handle multiple speakers very well, nor do they really engage with the piece. So, I will not be emulating Alex Linder's style of talking whilst reading. We're just going to focus on the work and then comment afterwards in a sort of fireside chat, so other listeners can just exit the video there and not pursue into my potentially unnecessary commentary. So, for example, whilst I was recording that article, I researched Arthur Butz because I didn't actually know who he was. And he was the author of a pseudo-historical book called The Hoax of the 20th Century, The Case Against the Presumed Extermination of European Jewry. It was a very famous book regarding the veracity of an event known as the Shoah, and that's about as far as we're going to go in that direction. I will leave the rest for the viewer and the listener to engage with by themselves. But as Jonathan Bowden said in the article, he referenced his own novel, the non-fiction dialogue Apocalypse TV. I think Apocalypse TV is probably Jonathan Bowden's most interesting written work. It probably has the least relation to his speeches, or rather the least repeated content. As many of you may know already, a lot of the Jonathan Bowden books published by Countercurrents feature mainly transcripts of Jonathan Bowden's work. Now, in a pre-internet era, that was quite appreciated, but now we have all the transcripts, we have all the recordings. We don't have all the recordings and all the transcripts, of course. If you have any information on the Celine recording or transcript or video, if there is one, I would honestly offer you money for something like that, or any of the missing London Forum talks. Some of the BMP material, we know it exists, we know who has it, they're just unwilling to digitize it. But the post-BMP material is the most interesting, personally, and it is also the most elusive. Lots of websites and people who are now in jail or have deleted everything or have been arrested, had all their recording equipment destroyed, means that essentially a lot of Jonathan Bowden could even be considered lost media if you're into that kind of thing. Anyway, so we're going to go forwards with other unrecorded Jonathan Bowden material. I hopefully will catch you all on my other channels. If you hate me and you think I should stop, please comment. If you liked it, I don't care. You can also catch me on Twitter. Many of you may already know who I am. I'm not going to plug myself, and I'm only doing this for pure love of the game. I have most of the Jonathan Bowden PDFs already. I do have a physical copy of Pulp Fascism, but I also have a PDF, so I don't dog-ear my own one too much. Getting physical copies of Jonathan Bowden's written work is a bit of a challenge, since a lot of it is no longer in print, and Monsieur Greg Johnson, Countercurrents, didn't publish that many. I'm surprised I was able to pick up Pulp Fascism a long time ago when I was maybe honestly 16 or 17. I just purchased it. I heard one speech by Jonathan Bowden, and I saw the photo of him with the revolver, and I thought, oh God, I must have that. And I've never read it completely until now. Anyway, hopefully this recording has inspired you all to engage with Jonathan Bowden's written work. If not, well, try harder, and I'll hopefully see you all next time.